Gift of selfish rage. Privacy is rage. And yet I find repeating in my head, if I can be my own, I feel better there. After all I've been through, I've come to realize that life is like a river. No matter what you do, it keeps flowing. The waters carry the full spectrum of experiences. Everything mixes together and gets muddied up with uncertainty and deceit. When your head's above water, you feel everything, all the highs and the lows, and you can see where you're going. When you're underwater, it's calm and quiet. There's comfort in the darkness, but just because you're down below doesn't mean there aren't fucked up things ahead of you. You just can't see them. Drugs would let me dive to that place in my head where I'm exactly who I always wanted to be, without having to do any of the hard work to actually become that person inside and out. And the longer you're down there, the harder it is to leave. It might not seem like it, but the river never stops flowing, even when you're down below. Once you do come back up to the surface, you're in a different place than where you were before. At least, so the prophet says. I could either burn or cut off my pride and buy some time. A head full of lies is a weight tied to my waist.
Before Demri and I started going underwater, everyone in the band, all my family, really everybody around me just loved her. I mean, how could you not? She was the most fun person I've ever known. Even Jerry gave her a couple of parakeets for her birthday one year, but all that changed in a hurry. After we got signed and were making serious money, Alice in Chains became a business. People's livelihood was now tied to my well-being. There were over 40 people on a payroll, and they all counted on me being out there. Somewhere along the line, the Alice guys decided Demri was responsible for my drug problems. She was blamed for that mystery which already existed within me. She went from being loved to being the devil. The hate wasn't coming just from my side. People close to Demri blamed me for her drug problems. We were being attacked from every direction. All those people pointing fingers didn't see the love we shared, because if they had, they would have known that our love, it was the best thing to ever happen to me. Back in the facelift days, Demri and I were living in a hotel in Seattle, and Mary Cole and Kevin Wilkins staged an intervention for me. It was fucking ridiculous. Demri was in the room with me while the whole intervention took place. After I agreed to go, they were trying to make me check out of the hotel in an attempt to make sure Demri doesn't have a place to stay, which was a load of shit in itself. They were constantly doing whatever they could, playing all sorts of games to keep us apart. My only defense was to put up a wall. I distanced myself from everyone in the Alice camp. On tour, nobody was allowed in my room except for Randy Biro. It wasn't like we didn't know we had issues. Demri and I tried to get clean together. Once we went to rehab in Los Angeles at the same time. Oh man, but that was fucking miserable though. They fed us so many drugs. Demri was higher in there than she's ever been. Her blood pressure was so low that she couldn't stand up without passing out.
We left that rehab in worse shape than when we arrived. Anything with Demri always took top priority. When I was on tour in Europe, I got a phone call from Demri's mom telling me they were staging an intervention for her. I was reluctant to participate because I hate interventions, and they almost never work. But I couldn't sleep knowing I wasn't doing everything I could to help her. And I flew back to Seattle. Demri and her mom picked me up from the airport and went to her mom's apartment where the intervention was going to take place. The next morning, several of her friends, her grandparents, her brothers, and I were all in the living room. When Demri came out to the living room, she knew exactly what was going on. She said, "You're not fucking intervening on me, and I'm not going to fucking rehab," and went back upstairs. Eventually, she came back out to hear what everyone had to say. When her brother Devin said, "You're my sister and I love you and I don't want you to die," she agreed to go. On the drive to the rehab, she was saying shit like, "I'm fucking leaving as soon as I get there. As soon as I get there, I'm going in the front door and out the back." Then her mom would say, "Well, damn, you're going to do what you're going to do. My job is to get you there." We were able to get her checked into rehab. Demri's always been incapable of handling guilt. If she offended you and you didn't have a cell phone or anything, she would start calling your house. And if you didn't answer, you'd find her waiting for you in front of your house to apologize. Because of how she acted on the way to rehab, she felt guilty and needed to call us. You're not allowed to make any calls the first week in rehab. But she convinced the staff to make an exception. She told them, "I've got to apologize to my mom and Layne. I've got to tell them I'm sorry. I've got to tell them that I love them. I'll stay and be a good person if you just let me say I'm sorry." They allowed her to call me and her mom, but she wasn't able to get a hold of us and checked herself out of rehab after just a few hours. Demri went to rehab 2 more times, but never made it to graduation. The constant blaming that Demri had to endure, and all the scheming to pull us apart finally worked. They got what they wanted. It wasn't even me who ended our engagement. Demri instigated the breakup. One day she just stopped coming to see me. If you get told something enough, you can start to believe it, even if it's horse shit. She got the idea in her head that she was going to ruin my life. She decided she wasn't going to accept money from me as well. She was going to do whatever it took to get drugs all on her own. She was proud of her independence, even if that meant doing some nasty shit. I tried to offer her anything she wanted. I'd have given her everything I had if it meant getting her to stop what she was doing, but she would only accept money she felt she had earned. So she started coming by my place once a week to clean. I'd pay her then and give her some blow, or whatever else she asked for. Our first reality check came on Thanksgiving in '93. Demri started getting bad fevers and had to go to the hospital for the first time. They kept her in there until January of '94. But then the fevers returned, and she had to go back again in March. This time it was way worse, and she ended up on life support. Altogether, she went through 2 operations on her lungs and 2 operations on her heart. She almost died from doing a speedball. The doctors had to massage her heart just to keep her alive. Her life became a cycle of suffering. I paid for all her treatments, But that was the extent of what I could do. I was stuck on the sidelines, watching her fight a losing battle. When I was a kid, this guy I knew wrapped a kitten's legs with twine and threw it into a lake right in front of me. I screamed, "No man, take it out." But he was bigger than me, so I just watched it drown. I felt so helpless. Fuck, it was horrible watching this tragedy take place right in front of my eyes. And I'm sitting on the shore unable to do anything. Watching Demri drown for the last 2.5 years of her life gave me that exact same feeling. I would see her as much as I could in the hospital. I'd often spend the night there, then leave in the early hours of the morning so I wouldn't get recognized. Susan Silver would also visit Demri in the hospital. It was heartbreaking seeing her in the ICU. She was conscious but intubated. She had a tube inserted down her throat to help her breathe. She would tell us, "I hate being fucking intubated. I can't talk and these people come and they ask me these fucking questions. And I can't fucking talk. I feel like a fucking fish in a fucking fishbowl." She kept a small blackboard and a piece of chalk nearby, which she used to communicate with us. I wouldn't wish what she went through on my worst enemy. You might think going through something that horrible would make someone desperate to get clean, but for Demri it was just the opposite. Right after her first open heart surgery, she showed up at Mark Laning's place in broad daylight, dressed in a white hospital gown, wheeling a pole with an IV bottle. Mark was so pissed. He was doing all sorts of illegal things at his apartment and was already on bad terms with his landlord. If his landlord saw this spectacle, Mark would probably get kicked to the curb. He said, "What the fuck, Demri? What happened to you?" She lowered her gown and showed him the ugly red scar running down the middle of her chest. "I got endocarditis and they gave me a pacemaker." She smiled as if she were telling him she won the lottery. "Mark, baby, do you have any dope? I'll even take cottons, whatever." Mark couldn't believe his ears and said, "Are you fucking kidding me? No way, get your ass back over to the hospital. You're out of your mind." Endocarditis is a junkie's worst nightmare. IV drug users catch it from the bacteria in heroin. It wreaks havoc on your heart valves and is usually a death sentence. But even that was nothing compared to the power of her addiction. She was willing to break out of the hospital and wheel herself all the way across town just to get some cottons. Mark shut the door on her mid-sentence during her plea for drugs, turned around and walked back upstairs to his apartment and switched off his door buzzer. Demri is a very self-aware person. She knew better than anyone else what she was up against and how far she had fallen. One weekend, Demri went to visit her mother. After spending the weekend together, her mom drove her back to Seattle. On their way there, another car suddenly cut them off on the freeway. It was a real close call. Once the initial shock wore off, Demri shouted, "God, Mom, I hate that you have to drive this route every day. If something happened to you, I don't know what I'd do." She paused for a moment, then said in a resigned tone, "I don't even know why I said that. I'm going to die before you do." Her mother confronted her directly. "Okay, you love me so much. You're going to have me bury you?" Demri fell silent. After a while, she responded, "Well, I never really thought about it that way. But I know that I'll be dead before you. I'll be dead before I'm 30. The Unplugged show was just special. We had turned down MTV's offers a good handful of times before we finally accepted. Pearl Jam and Nirvana had already done their shows. And we were thinking, no disrespect, but hasn't this been done by everyone? We don't need to do that. But they were persistent, and at the start of '96, we agreed to do it. With an Unplugged show, there's no safety net, so your songs better be pretty good. It boils everything down and reveals the heart of the song, without all the bells and whistles. So if a song still hits in that environment, then you did good. It had been over 2 years since the last time we played live together. During that time, I'd been walking through fucking hell, and it left marks. The plan was to start doing rehearsals in Seattle, but we hardly did any actual rehearsing. Nobody was showing up, and it became more apparent that unless things seriously changed, there was no way we could go out and play to our potential. We couldn't even get through a fucking week and a half without drama and scary shit going on, but we kept marching forward, even with a limp. A few weeks before the show, the producer Alex Coletti flew out to Seattle to see what kind of shape we were in. When we met at a rehearsal space, I walked into the room eating a bucket of chicken with fingerless gloves on and gave Alex an elbow bump. He hung out for a while and heard me sing. By that point, he was sure the show was going to be not just a home run, but a slam dunk. We brought in Scott Olson as a second guitarist. We knew him because he would play with Aaron and Nancy Wilson. We chose the Majestic Theater for the venue. It's a pretty sick spot. It had been recently renovated to intentionally look all fucked up. There are bullet holes in the walls and all the paint is flaking and shit. It was never a sure thing that we were going to be able to do the gig. But we traveled to New York in early April for the show, which was set for April 10th in '96. I hate bright stages, so I brought candles from Pike Place for lighting. We made a last-minute request for lava lamps. I guess lava lamps need to be turned on and get heated up for a while before they do what they're meant to do. So during the show, they're just barely moving around. Man, it was a nail-biter up until the last moment. Just one big clusterfuck. Jerry was sick as a dog, throwing up left and right. He was on an IV backstage, and I was feeling the withdrawals heavy. I had brought my own pre-cooked supply of dope, which I kept in this old glass pill bottle that had a cork top. I shot up right before I went on stage. I couldn't have made it through the show otherwise. I did just the right amount where I wouldn't be nodding off and drooling, but enough that I wouldn't have to run to the bathroom during the show. Jerry wasn't sure he could make it through the full set, and they put a trash can next to him in case he had to throw up. But when the light went green and the cameras went on and we started playing, Jerry got a little adrenaline rush that carried him through the show. It was very emotional when we finally stepped onto the stage. Everyone could sense the sacrifices we made to create this music and achieve this level of success. A lot of people in the audience started crying. It was one of those rare moments where art and life become one. Chase best friend alive. Face the path of time, and yet I fight this battle all alone. No one to cry to, no place to go home. Metallica was sitting right in front, and to poke some fun at him, Mike wrote "Friends Don't Let Friends Get Friends" haircuts on his bass. There were these TV commercials back in the day that would say "Friends don't let friends drive drunk." The guys in Metallica had recently cut off all their hair because everyone had decided long hair wasn't cool anymore. Those guys have always been in our inner circle of rock and roll brothers, so to have the whole band there meant a lot. We have a lot of respect for those guys.
Okay, now we're gonna break to an LL Cool J video, so.
We wanted to play Love, Hate, Love, and We Die Young during the set, but we ran short on time and had to axe those songs. And I know the set looks great on the show, but we actually fucked up quite a bit. The rules for an unplugged show allow you to perform as many takes as you'd like and choose the best one, but no overdubs or anything else are allowed. What you hear is exactly what was recorded live. Our set was 13 songs, but we performed like 26. We played Sludge Factory 6 fucking times. I don't know the lyrics by heart to that song, or honestly to any of the songs on the self-titled album, except for Again. It definitely didn't help that the label executives I'd written that song about were sitting right there in the front row. The song Killer Is Me was written just for this show. Jerry had come up with the riff and chorus about a year earlier, and I always wanted to put something to it. From time to time Jerry would remind me, but I never got around to it. Just before the show, Sean suggested we finally finish the song, so Jerry took on finishing the song, which was a relief to me, and wrote it a few hours before the show. There was a lot of clowning around with the audience going on. Once the show got rolling, it was like one of our regular shows, but more intimate. The whole time we were giving Randy Bureau shit, calling him a fucking Frenchman, or a fucking frog from Montreal. And then he'd yell right back at us. It was funny at first. The audience thought we were being serious with what we were saying to Randy. I think some people got offended. Sean deserves a lot of credit for how well the performance turned out. If you've ever watched any Unplugged shows, you'll notice the band lives or dies by the drummer. It's really easy for drummers to slip into playing like they're at a regular rock show. When that happens, everyone has to turn up their monitors and the intimate vibe is lost. Sean played with the perfect gentle touch that allowed us to play acoustically. It took us close to 3 hours to finish the show. The Unplugged show was all about the music, about getting our friends and family to come and see us play. Fuck, I wish I would have hugged everyone who was there. 2 weeks later, MTV sent us the first cut of the Unplugged show. They did me real dirty, making me look like a fucking junkie. and I was paying attention throughout the entire performance. But the way it was edited made it seem like I was constantly nodding off. They'd show me sitting there with my eyes closed for several bars of music, but when it was my turn to sing, they'd cut away to Jerry or Mike or anywhere but me. It made it look like I was sleeping through the whole thing. I didn't want it coming out at all. I asked Toby Wright if he'd re-edit the footage, and he nailed it. The show aired on May 28th, 96. Man, that show was a beautiful moment in time. It turned out to be one of the greatest shows we've ever played. The Unplugged means a lot to so many people, and it means a lot to me too. After the Unplugged show came out, we performed at a couple of late night shows to promote the self-titled album.
And afterwards they led me to believe that we'd all become great friends. You know, we had a great time doing the video, and they said, yeah, we'll be great friends, we'll hang out. So I called them when I went to Seattle. I never heard back from them. I called them, never heard back from them. But I know tonight after the show that we're all gonna be really great friends and hang out, right guys?
We'll exchange numbers later if we.
But we can hang out though, right? No.
Yeah.
Anyway, Allison changed.
Hey, let 'em do it again. Yeah. Hey, said you were my friend. Hey, turn me upside down. Oh, hey, feeling so down. Hey, take control of me again and The biggest story in rock that year was that Kiss was reuniting with their original lineup for the first time since 1979. Stone Temple Pilots was supposed to go on tour with them, but Scott Weiland had to go to rehab and forced STP to pull out. That gave us the opportunity to tour with Kiss. At first, I didn't want to do it. I was just completely burned out on touring, but Sean and Jerry were so stoked about it, especially Sean. He had been part of the Kiss Army since he was 10 years old, and used to actually believe those guys were from space and shit. Besides, we're also the Kiss of the grunge bands. So eventually, I changed my mind and we started preparing to hit the road. We rented out the Moore Theater for 3 weeks of rehearsals. The 4 of us were on totally different schedules, so it was hard to get us all there at the same time. Mike usually showed up around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Sean would arrive a bit later. Then Jerry would come in, and then I would show up around 9. We'd run through a couple of songs and then take off. Susan Silver was doing everything she possibly could to support us and keep things moving forward.
Guys, be quiet for a minute. This is serious.
The tour opened in Detroit on June 28th, on a sunny day in front of 40,000 fans. That first show went really well. Billy Corgan was in the audience. There were these inflatable figures made of each band member, like 2 on each side of the stage. It was a magical set, but with something of that scale, there's always bound to be some technical issues. One of the inflatables must have had a hole in it, because they kept trying to blow it up and it wouldn't stay inflated. I can't remember exactly whose inflatable was malfunctioning, but that little mishap almost derailed the entire reunion tour. Whoever it was could have thrown a fit, because their inflatable figure wasn't working properly, and the whole reunion could have blown up right there. There were so many people in the audience painted like Kiss characters, full makeup and everything. So in between songs, I'd look out at the crowd and say, "What the fuck's wrong with you people? How come no one painted their face to look like me?" And they all booed. Jerry poured a little extra gas in the fire by playing riffs from their songs. Jerry knows a ton of Kiss tunes. After our set, as we're leaving the stage and Kiss were getting ready to come on, they're standing there in these monster costumes and everything. They ask us, "Hey, how's the show?" Sean couldn't handle it. He was just looking at him, shaking his head, saying, "I just can't do this." It was surreal. We couldn't even fully absorb it. And then we went up to the soundboard to watch their show. Suddenly it was like we were transported back into childhood. It was so fucking cool. We all had the same experience. Just looking at each other like, fuck man, this is actually happening. It felt like being 11 or 12 years old again. But we just played in front of our heroes. And then we did a show in Kentucky on June 30th. William Duvall was in the audience for that one. And then on July 3rd, we took the stage in Kansas City. After we played Angry Chair, Sean grabbed the mic and took center stage. Sean's a fantastic drummer. He's got a great eye and business sense, and he's very artistic. But he's not a great singer. The whole stadium of 60,000 people booed him. They weren't the only ones who disapproved. Peter Criss didn't really like it either. He had a little problem with it. The crowd at that show was amazing. After the show, we were heading to the airport on our bus when the dope finally caught up with me and I started overdosing. They couldn't wake me up, so I had to be rushed to a nearby hospital where the doctors managed to keep me alive. It wasn't my first close call. A few years earlier, I was sitting with a friend and I blanked out for about a minute. I had no control over my muscles and it scared the shit out of me, because I experienced what I guess could have been hell or, purgatory or whatever. It was freezing cold and I was spinning like I was drunk and trying desperately to take a breath. There was chest pain like I was gonna explode. I was lucky enough to get a glimpse of where I was going to go. And I do not want to go there, because I know that if your time is not finished here and you end it yourself, then you gotta finish it somewhere else. I've always been scared of death, especially death by my own hand. I'm scared of where I would go. Those were the last shows we played in public. They went great and they were fun. It was nice being out there. It was only 5 or 6 shows, but by the last one it was cops, ambulances, and then get on the plane, hide the drugs. Overall, we ended it on a high note. Each of us in our own way came to the same conclusion, that if we never did anything else again, we'd be okay with this.
Selfish, paying your rent while your blood I'm taking. You bend me like a tree. $30 bills for leaves. Darking the sea of my sleep and the tears on which you been.
the summer of '96. Demri started hanging out and living with this absolute loser named Russell. She crashed at his apartment off and on for about 2 months. By this point, the only things Demri owned were a few small suitcases of clothes and some books. She would call and tell me, "I'm staying with this guy, he's a musician, and he's really nice. We saw this new band perform last night." And I was not happy about the arrangement at all. I'd call Russell's apartment and leave messages saying, "You're not a musician. You're a fucking drug dealer." Russell thought I was an asshole, but every time he said anything bad about me, Demri would always stick up for me. All those years of drug abuse had taken a toll on her body. She looked a lot older than she actually was and was so skinny. She couldn't keep any weight on and her face was starting to look sunken in. Demri would still come over once a week to clean my house, and she had started sharing the coke I gave her with Russell. Because of that, Russell ended up getting hooked on coke and eventually had to go to rehab. After staying with Russell, Demri spent about a month in a nursing home for old people. All the old people there loved her. One of the friends she made there used to be a well-known architect in Seattle. One night, after taking his meds, he snuck out in his motorized wheelchair and headed to the supermarket to buy donuts, soda, and potato chips. On the way back, he crashed his wheelchair and broke his glasses. When they finally found him after the spill, he told them, "I'm going to have a party with Demri. Leave me alone." Demri knew the end was near. She started tying up loose ends, reaching out and touching base with the people she cared about. She had always lived a nomadic life, staying at different friends' places for a few days or a couple weeks at a time. But by now it had become really difficult for her to find anywhere to stay. People were afraid to have her stay with them because no one wanted her to die at their house. She began staying with this weird older guy who was the father of one of her friends. The guy started isolating Demri, keeping her away from everyone else, and it got to the point where nobody, even her mom, could reach her. Her mom was getting really worried and kept calling until the guy finally picked up. She immediately said, "I want to talk to my daughter." He came up with some excuse about why she couldn't come to the phone, but her mom wasn't having any of it. She told him, "If I don't hear from my daughter within the next 20 minutes, I'm going to call the police and we are going to show up at your door." He replied, "Well, I'll see if I can wake her up." Demri called her mom shortly after that, but nobody else was able to get in touch with her. On the afternoon of October 28th in '96, the older guy drove Demri into Seattle. She wanted to pick up a few things from Fred Meyer's. By the time they arrived at the store, Demri had passed out and he couldn't wake her up. He didn't think it was a big deal, so he went into the store anyways to get the things she wanted. When he came back out, he still couldn't wake her and drove home. He left her in the car while he went inside to do his laundry. Eventually, the dumb fuck realized something was seriously wrong. In a panic, he drove to the home of some people who knew Demri's mom, freaking out and yelling, she's dead, what am I going to do?" She still had a faint pulse and they raced to the hospital. Demri finally made it to the hospital 2.5 hours after she first lost consciousness. By the time her mom got to the hospital, the old man had already left. Demri was still alive but unconscious. The doctors thought she might still be able to hear. Her mom leaned in and said, "Dem, if you have a choice to stay or to go, you don't have to stay for me anymore." During previous hospitalizations, she'd always told Demri to fight, to hold on, to survive. But this time was different. It was the only time her mom gave her permission to go. Demri's mom and aunt stayed overnight at the hospital. That night, they strongly felt her presence. But by morning, they didn't feel anything. Demri was still on life support, but she was already gone. After her mom said her final goodbye, Demri was taken off life support. She died from an overdose. She was only 27 years old. and I never recovered from losing Demri. It was like having a piece of my soul ripped out. The pain and guilt became a black hole I couldn't escape. People talk, they make assumptions, want to put the blame somewhere. Yeah, we both had our demons, fought our battles, but she was my world. After she was gone, it was like all the lights went out. Everything in life lost its meaning. It's hard to explain, but the emptiness, it just swallows you whole. I felt such an urgency to hide and slow the flow of emotions. The first thing I did when I got the news was call Mark. He was out of town on tour. When I finally got a hold of him, I said, "Oh man, I can't believe it. She's gone." Then I broke down in tears. Mark tried consoling me by saying, "God damn it, brother, I am so fucking sorry. I don't know what to say. I'm just incredibly sorry this is happening to you." Through the tears, I told him, "I can't stand to be alone right now. When are you coming back?" Mark said, "I just got here today. We're not back for 6 weeks." I said, "Oh fuck. I wish you were coming back sooner. I need to hang out with someone. This is tearing me up." Mark said, "I'm sorry, bro. St. Louis is at my place. Go stay there. I need someone to keep an eye on him anyway. Kick him the fuck out of the bedroom and you take it. He can sleep on the couch or the mattress. You'd be doing me a favor." I had spent time with St. Louis before and I found him pretty amusing. St. Louis was Mark's 6'4" cross-dressing drug buddy, who was also selling crack for him. His quiet nature made him easy to be around. I told Mark, "Okay, I'm going over there right now." So at 5:30 in the morning, I moved into Mark's place. My daily goal was to get high enough that the outside world would cease to exist. St. Louis and I would spend our time smoking crack and arguing with each other over junkie etiquette. When Mark finally got back from tour, I was taken back by his appearance. I said, "Well man, what the hell happened to you?" Mark said, "Let's just say it was a rough fucking ride." With Mark back in town, the three of us stayed awake for days on end, taking turns hitting the pipe, with St. Louis obsessively scanning the floor looking for what we might have dropped. Mark and I would go on night-long cocaine binges, silently locked in the bathroom doing shot after shot of coke. I would sometimes do speedballs, where I shot the coke and the dope together. Both Mark and I demanded absolute silence while performing this ritual. The explosion as the coke hit our brains was what we craved, and the slightest outside noise would ruin it for us. The coke wrecked many of my veins. This went on for quite a while, in Mark's small one-bedroom apartment. No matter what I did, I never stopped grieving Demri's death. I just had the same thought repeating in my head. I should have gotten us out of there. I had the money. I could have done it. I should have gotten us out of Seattle. I was little, my dad left. My world turned black. Everything around me was black. Over the years, my dad became more involved in my life, and I thought it might bring some light back. But I was wrong. My dad started using drugs again. We would do drugs together, and I found myself in many miserable situations with him. He started visiting me all day to get high and do drugs with me. It's clear to me now that he came back into my life just to get some shit, and that's all. It seemed like every time I was trying to kick this habit out of my life, out of nowhere here comes Phil asking for money to buy more dope. One day St. Louis went for a walk and simply never came back. So my dad took over St. Louis's duties as a drug runner for Mark and me, which made our father-son dynamic even more fucked up. My favorite position to catch a nod was standing up, bent all the way forward with my head nearly touching the floor. Nothing made me angrier than seeing my dad catching a nod. I would videotape him and then force him to watch it. He was doing the same thing we all did every day. But when I saw him high, it was different. It opened up all those wounds from my childhood that never healed. I know my pain is self-chosen, but sometimes it felt like fate with all the losses in my life. First we lost Andy, then we lost Kurt, and then I lost 5 more friends within a 2-year period. And then on top of all that came the death knell, losing my soulmate. No amount of drugs could numb all that pain. After almost 4 months at Mark's, I began to crave isolation and moved into the penthouse condo I bought in the University District. It was very private and secure. I didn't have to worry about anybody bothering me there. Toby Wright helped set up a home studio in my condo. It was set up so I could just go in, hit a button, and record. I had a little drum machine in there too. My daily routine consisted of playing video games from dusk to dawn, feeding my cat Sadie, smoking crack, shooting dope, and working on my art projects. And I was having fun experimenting with Sculpey clay. It comes in all different colors. My favorite color was glow in the dark. I did basically all my shopping at Fred Meyer's. I would get my favorite coconut ice cream bars, clothes, and art supplies all from Fred's. I messed around with these craft kits for stained glass and designed a few faces for clocks. I created some animated characters and jewelry from clay. For food, I almost always ordered out. I had every cleaning supply known to man. I was very conscientious about keeping my place clean. The penthouse was my own little world. I could draw the curtains and just disappear. Drugs definitely aren't good for your body. That's just a fact. I don't think any drug that can cause brain damage, failing kidneys, hardening arteries, pain, and suffering should be made available. But it's also the lifestyle you lead, the diet, and everything else that comes along with doing the drugs that fucks you up. I lived on a strictly sugar diet. That's all I really ate day and night. I probably wasn't getting a lot of nutrients, and I wasn't exercising at all. Before, even if I wasn't working out, I would get exercise when I performed. But those days were long gone. Now the only exercise I got was when I had to go pick up drugs or when I went shopping. The lifestyle made me really weak. Around 96, I started losing my teeth. It was a gradual process. It wasn't like I woke up one morning and they were all gone, but it made me really self-conscious.
Sorrow, yeah.
In '97, grunge officially died. Our band was taking an indefinite hiatus and Soundgarden broke up that spring. Susan Silver shut down her management business. It was the end of an era. The media didn't miss the opportunity to scoop up some dirt. There was an article in the Rocket magazine which said, "Sources within the company report that Silver will close up the shop near the end of December." Sure, Soundgarden don't need a manager anymore, but who will burp and change Alice in Chains? I couldn't let that crap fly. So I sent him a package with a jar full of piss and a bag full of shit. I put a note in the package saying, "Wipe and change this, motherfuckers." Susan Silver threw a Christmas party that year. I ran into Randy Biro there. At first it was like he didn't recognize me. It was probably because I was a lot skinnier than the last time he had seen me. I was also wearing a baseball hat and had glasses on. Once he realized it was me, he gave me this shocked or freaked out look. I came to know that fucking look very well. It seemed like everyone I ran into from then on had that same awful expression on their face. Each time I saw that look, it made me want to engage with the outside world less and less. After the party, I invited Randy to check out my place, which was around the corner from where the party was. I'm very proud of my home. Randy was pretty impressed. He got a kick out of my massive rear projection TV that I had gotten through the label. Finally, Randy asked the question he'd been wanting to ask all night. "Wow, so have you got anything?" And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not gonna give it to you." He's like, "Why not?" I told him, "Because you're clean. I'm not gonna be part of this. If you need to go do that, you do it somewhere else. I don't want to be part of it. I don't want you to end up like me again." That was the last time I saw Randy. Towards the end of '97, I did a song called "The Things You Do" with my friend Jesse Holt. Jesse is the singer and guitarist of Second Coming. In 1998, I got word that the cops were looking for Mark and sent him a page, telling him to keep his head down. Mark had gotten a laptop for a $10 piece of rock from this crackhead, and then sold it to a pawn shop for $75. Well, big surprise. It turned out that the laptop was stolen. A cop came knocking on Mark's door saying, "If you know what's good for you, you'll shut the fuck up and let me in." After flushing all his drugs, he let the cop in. There were crack pipes and spoons on the table, a mound of used syringes on the floor in the corner, probably 2 feet high. And the cop told Mark, "I'm going to give you 2 options. Either go to rehab and get yourself cleaned up or leave town." At long last, Mark was face to face with the dilemma he'd been desperately avoiding forever. He was only 33 but looked twice as old. He was 6'2" but weighed only 165 pounds and had huge open wounds on his arms. He had no money, no safe place to stay. He had burned every bridge from both ends and every church from floorboard to ceiling. When he first got to Seattle, he would have climbed Mount Everest for a shot of heroin. Now he barely had the strength to climb a single flight of stairs. Mark agreed to the cops' terms, and after a little while of fighting fate, he went to rehab in California. Out of all my friends, I was sure Mark was the guy who never had a chance of getting clean. He was so fucking maniacal in his approach to drugs. I thought if anyone's going to be a junkie for life, it's gotta be Mark.
small and broken. All that's gone before you change.
In August of '98, we decided to record 2 new songs for our Music Bank box set. We wanted to work with Jordan and see if we could recapture some of the magic from Facelift and Dirt. Jordan was working on an album with The Offspring at the time, but he really wanted to do the songs with us. We made arrangements to spend a weekend in August at Jordan's El Dorado studio. The plan was to record an entire song each day. It was also my 31st birthday that weekend. Jerry, Sean, and Mike arrived to the studio in the early afternoon. Sean got all his parts down in about 4 takes. Mike recorded all his bass parts that day. And then Jerry recorded his rhythm guitar parts and some overdubs. I didn't arrive until 3 a.m. When I walked into the studio, everyone gave me that same dreaded shocked look that I fucking hated. The first thing I did was grab my friend Jimmy Shove's ass. Then they set me up in a control room so I could listen to the rough tracks and work on lyrics. Before getting started, I went to the bathroom and stayed there for a while until I was able to get well. When I came back to the control room, I grabbed a bottle of root beer, sat on a couch, and nodded off until I noticed the soda spilling on the floor. There was an electronic drum kit set up that I started playing around with. It was really cool. You could program it with all these cartoon sounds. A little bit later, they brought me out a cake and sang Happy Birthday. I was feeling good and inspired and wanted to do everything. Write the lyrics and track my vocals. I was ready to finish all my parts that night. But it was almost 5 in the morning and everyone else was exhausted. Some of the guys had been in the studio for almost 20 hours. Jordan decided to call it a night and said we would come back and finish tomorrow. I told everyone I couldn't come tomorrow. I had to go back to Seattle to attend my sister's wedding. Jerry cut me off mid-sentence and raised his voice at me as if he were my angry parent, and told me to shut up. Then Jordan said to me, "Listen, I'm not here to be your friend. I have a job to do." It was a horrible situation. I just sat there and froze up. I no longer had the strength to stand up for myself. I had become this beaten down, frightened person who was at the mercy of my all-consuming addiction. I didn't say another word for the rest of the night. Everybody left and we ended the session without recording my vocals. Jordan tried to book a studio in Seattle for me to record my vocals. But after that ordeal, I didn't want to work with him anymore. I called up Toby Wright and got him to help us finish the song. Toby and I had a special relationship. He had already gone through a phase of smoking weed and doing coke and heroin and all that kind of shit, so we could identify with each other. For those 2 songs, he handed me a piece of paper and a pencil and said, "Write it all down. Make a song out of your pain, 'cause pain makes for great music." The 2 songs we created are called Died and Get Born Again. By this time, Jerry and I weren't getting along at all. There was no fucking way we'd be in the same room together. So we would come into the studio at different times. Those 2 songs used a lot of Pro Tools editing. That was one of the first times we'd ever used Pro Tools. What happened was I would do something to the song and then go home. And then Jerry would come in and change it, then leave. And I would come in and hear what Jerry did and change it again. Getting my vocals down for those songs was one of the toughest recording experiences I've ever had, because I was missing a lot of my teeth and it gave me a lisp. We tried to stay away from lyrics that made it stand out. Both of those songs are very personal. They deal with some heavy subjects like loss and religion.
We spent more time working on Get Born Again than we did on Died. Died is a bit more Alice in a jam room than our other releases, but it's vicious. There aren't that many overdubs on it, so you get a more unfiltered version of what Alice is.
You just up and left me on this rock all alone. It's my fault for knowing not what I should have known. My heart is dried up, beating slow. It's been this fading since you
The song Get Born Again turned out to be pretty classic Alice. That song is about hypocrisy, basically religious hypocrisy. I have a fascination with how brainwashed people get with religion, and how they'll give up their money, their time, and their whole life for a cause that they're sure is right, but I'm sure is wrong. I think there's a lot of people who are scared of life and living, and they want to make sure they get to heaven or whatever. Those are some of the things I was thinking about. But our perception of songs that we've written, the meaning changes from day to day to whatever stage we're at in our life and careers. Those two songs ended up being my last with Alice.
one dampened grave, thick fog that hide our smiles. Clear all your sins, get born again. Just repeat a couple lines.
In the fall of '98, Tom Morello and Matt Staley were putting together a supergroup called the Class of '99 to record a cover of Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall. And they still didn't have a singer and were asking themselves, who the hell can we get to sing this? A few names were floated like Zach De La Rocha, till Tom said my name. Everyone in the band was a fan of mine. Tom Morello's a good friend, and I've always wanted to do something with him, so it was an easy decision. By the time I agreed, we only had 3 days left to record the song. So Matt flew to Seattle to record with me. The session was supposed to start at 4 in the afternoon, but I didn't get there until midnight. I had become a real homebody, and I'd constantly get lost in my own little world. Someone would come to pick me up to take me somewhere, and the next thing you know, 4 hours have gone by. I'd have to get all my shit together before I could leave. Then get distracted and start doing something on the Game Boy, and then doing something on the TV. Before you know it, the whole day would go by. It was my first time meeting Matt Staley, and I guess he was expecting me to look like I did back in my heyday. So I got served that same freaked out look that I despised. I brought some Mickey D's with me and hung out in the lounge eating my burger for the first 2 hours I was there. At around 3, I came down to sing. Like always, I didn't want anybody else around when I was singing. Especially because this was one of the first times I was working with people I hadn't worked with before. The engineer hid under the console while I was singing, to make me feel like I was all by myself. It took me a while to get my voice warmed up, but once I did, I nailed my takes. I did my stacked vocal style for the track. My lisp was apparent on the vocals, so we had to redo some of the parts where the letter S was pronounced. We finished up at around 4:30 in the morning. It was an exciting project to be a part of. I really liked how the track came out.
We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. No dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teachers leave them kids alone. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone. All in all, it's just another brick in the wall. All in all, you're just another brick in the wall.
In '99, the Mad season ended for good. After the success of Above, Baker was really hyped to continue working on Mad Season. He was really proud of the record we made and the live shows we played. He would tell us so again and again. Baker was a true blues player through and through. He didn't just play the blues, he lived it. Behind the scenes, Baker was a recovering heroin addict. He was very confident in his recovery. When he would come over to my place, there would be a big pile of heroin sitting right in front of him, and he wouldn't even try and steal it. That's how well he thought he was doing in recovery. That it could be sitting right in front of him, and he wouldn't even touch it. After a while, I stopped answering the door whenever Baker showed up. In '96, Baker, McCready, and Martin wrote and recorded 17 instrumental tracks. For a second Mad Season album we were going to call Disinformation. The original plan for the second record was to have Mark Lanning and much more involved. But Mark and I never showed up to the studio. The guys lost faith that I'd get it together and work on the second record. So Mike had the idea that Mark could take over as singer and they'd rename the band Disinformation. But Mark never showed up. It was a huge letdown for Baker. He went on to join a Seattle band called the Walkabouts. They did a few tours, but eventually he got fired from the band. He became really stressed out about his financial situation. He had gotten like 50 grand in advance for the second album, but because we never finished it, the label began withholding his royalties to recover the advance money. With no regular source of income, Baker started selling stuff on eBay. It got so bad that he pawned his black Fender jazz bass guitar, which had been given to him by his parents when he was a teenager. He needed the money for rent or else he was going to be evicted. He never cared about having some big mansion and a fancy car and all the stuff like that. He just wanted to be recognized as a good bass player in a good band. He never got the recognition. It was always the other guys who were getting all the attention. He felt like the odd man out. Barrett lived close to Baker and they would often have breakfast together. On the evening of January 15th in '99, Barrett called Baker and suggested they grab breakfast at a restaurant the next day. Baker agreed. Prior to that call, Baker had spent the day drinking beers with a friend. And that night, they decided to shoot some dope. It was the first time Baker had used in a long time. Right after the shot, Baker became lethargic and unresponsive, then collapsed on the kitchen floor. His friend tried to revive him, but it didn't work. Baker was dead before the ambulance even arrived. Baker had always said, "If I use heroin again, I will die." He was 44 years old. When Baker died, that was it. The band was done. He always was the soul of the band. People would hear about what my life had become and think they knew exactly what I should do, or that they understood what I was going through. For everyone else, it's abstract, but I had to actually live that shit. Do you know how fucking easy it is to do an intervention? I'm the one who's stuck living with myself and all the decisions I've made, all the people I've let down. Sober or high, I've got to carry all that. Even if I did get clean, I still wouldn't be living up to my mom's standards. I never was or wanted to be the good church-going Christian she wanted me to be. I tried to stay away from religion as much as I could. I was raised in a church until I was 16, and I've disagreed with their beliefs as long as I can remember. So when I had the choice, I chose not to believe in anything apart from myself. I was going to take my own path, have my own sense of right and wrong. It's a lot harder to stay true to yourself than it is to just go along with what other people say. I've been butting heads with authority figures ever since I was a kid. I remember one time my mom sent me to clean my room. I've always liked having my stuff all around me, scattered and kind of all over the place. But that just wasn't my mom's style. She's totally straight edge. She told me, clean the room. So I went to work organizing all my stuff and putting things where I thought they belonged. When she came down to check how I'd done, she saw my desk still covered with all my stuff. To me, it was perfectly clean, but not to my mom. Without saying a word, she swept her arm across the desk and knocked everything onto the floor.
Black is all I feel, so this is how it feels to be free.
When I do think about getting clean, it's not like I would ever be straight as an arrow. That would never be my intention. I like to loosen up, and I don't think I could ever be completely sober. But by this point, I was in so fucking deep that I'd feel better dead, rather than endure the pain it takes to make that climb towards sobriety. There was no more strength within the core of my being. I was suffering from fevers and nausea. My arms were covered with abscesses and open wounds. My liver wasn't functioning properly. I had hepatitis C and I was throwing up and shitting my pants all the time. But what I feared most of all was the hell of withdrawals and facing reality. My fear was so great and so powerful that I made the decision that I'm never coming back. I'm not going to quit doing drugs. I'm going to die like this. This is it. A parade of people started coming by to try and talk me out of doing drugs. Chris Novoselic would leave me food. All the Alice guys would come knocking at my door. I had a camera set up so I could see who was there. I usually didn't let anyone in. Bob Forrest and John Frusciante thought they could change my mind. John was a bit hesitant because he didn't think you could really preach to somebody about getting clean. But Bob was adamant that they could make a difference. My mom was involved in the plan. She told me that John had gangrene once, and I said to her, In his arm? That's terrible, Mom. John's a guitar player. He needs his hands and arms. But me, I'm just a singer. I can get by without him. Bob and John came to my condo. Even though they were right in front of me, my mind was a million miles away. I was playing a video game the entire time they were there. Bob asked me, "Hey Layne, what's going on?" And I said, "Nothing. I know why you're here." And then Bob said, "Your mom's worried, man. You don't look too good." I was in the end game. My skin had turned gray and I weighed around 90 pounds. I told Bob and John, "I'm okay though, really." I pretended to listen to their pitch, but we all knew I wasn't going to change. They left feeling defeated. For a long time, Bob had thought love could cure addiction, but I showed him that sometimes it's not enough.
No one plans to take the path that brings you lower. And here you stand before us all and say it's over, it's over.
The first time I saw Mark after he'd gotten clean, he'd been clean for a year. Jerry and Mike flew him up to Seattle because they were unable to get into my house. Jerry and Mike knew that when I saw Mark, I would let him in. Mark went along with their plan and also wanted me to see that he was actually clean, that it was possible to get clean, and that my prediction that he would never be able to do it had failed. When I saw Mark at my door, I let him right in. And the first thing he said to me was, "Hey man, it's been a while. I've been clean for more than 12 months. I responded, "No, you weren't, man. You just left like 2 months ago." Being in my condo for so long had warped my sense of time, so I wasn't buying anything he was saying. After hanging out for a while, I said to Mark, "I always just keep thinking I'm gonna get that same feeling I got the first time again. And dude, I never got that first feeling again after the first time I ever did dope. I immediately had to do 5 times more to even get close to it. I knew getting back there was an impossibility, but that was my obsession."
It's your decision.
In early 2002, I became an uncle. My sister Liz gave birth to my nephew Oscar. Around Valentine's Day, I got to meet him. It was one of my most cherished moments, getting to connect with him and experience being an uncle. But honestly, it was bittersweet for me. My greatest fear has always been growing old and ending up alone. I kept hoping I would find someone to fall in love with and have children. And I did find that person. I always really wanted to have a family. I used to have tons and tons of goals that I wanted to accomplish. Goals I believed I would achieve. And my greatest goal was to have a family. A great family. By now that goal seemed impossible. The only person I wanted to build that life with was gone. And I was living in a constant state of regret. with the same thought stuck in my head. I should have gotten us out of there. If I had the money, I could have done it. I should have gotten us out of Seattle.
Every time I let it show, you didn't wanna know. By the time I had lost my soul, you had to go. You had to go.
Toby Wright was producing Taproot's new album. They made this instrumental track that they wanted me to sing on. It had been a while since I had done anything, and I was thinking, wow, I get to perform again. Toby sent me a demo of the song, and I told him, yeah, come on, let's do this. It was a really good song, and I felt honored that they wanted me to sing on it. The members of Taproot wanted to be there for the recording session, but I only wanted to do it with Toby. I wasn't looking or feeling great, and I didn't want to be seen. Then the plan was for me to do my thing and write my own lyrics, then have their singer Stephen Richards work off whatever I did. But I never got the chance to do my thing ever again. For Mike's 36th birthday, he wanted to hang out. I wasn't feeling up to going out, so he came over to my place. Right when he arrived, I told him I'm sick. He was really high on Xanax. We started watching TV, and while I was channel surfing, I stumbled on the show Crossing Over with John Edward. On the show, John tries to talk with dead loved ones of audience members. I turned to Mike and told him, Demri was here last night. I don't give a fuck if you fucking believe me or not, dude. I'm telling you, Demri was here last night. Mike began to get really worried about me. He wanted to call 911. I said, fuck that, and threatened to never speak to him again if he did. I said, you're an idiot on these pills. Then Mike got real offended. He said, fine, I'll just leave. Him leaving with us on bad terms just didn't feel right, especially on his birthday. I pleaded with him, not like this, don't leave like this. But he left anyway, and I was alone again. Externally, I was sitting in my penthouse, surrounded by all the drugs and material possessions that I ever wanted. But internally, I was stuck in the broom closet, aching for love and acceptance. All the tears I'd shed over the years had soaked my heart and weighted it down. I had been drowning, and I was tired and so very, very lonely. There was only one thing left for me to do: throw a blanket over the angry child that lives inside of me.
Fading out by design.
I loaded up a couple syringes and finally got that one good hit that stopped the flow. It wasn't a big moment. No, all my greatest moments had already happened.
Curtains drawn, now it's done.
I lived the wasted rock star ideal through to the very end, till all the glamour was gone. The road that drugs lead you down is not the way to the light. It doesn't lead to a fairy tale life. It leads to suffering and self-imprisonment. But everything in this world is temporary. You can't escape that. So it's not about how long you're able to stick around or how much money you make. It's about doing something meaningful while you're here.
Lay down, I'll remember you.
A couple of years back, I was at one of Ann Wilson's parties. After everybody else left, it was just me and Ann. She was swimming in the pool, and I was sitting in a chair looking up at the night sky. I was telling her about how I used to love diving into water as a kid. Whenever I go underwater, it feels like I've entered a whole different world. Suddenly, in the middle of our conversation, a huge meteor went over us. It looked like a bright, burning arrow arcing across the sky. For a second, it lit up our faces. Both of us looked young again. Anne was that little girl who loved playing air guitar and pretending to be Paul McCartney. And I was that kid who loved nothing more than diving into the water. In that moment, there was no darkness in my life.
Chase misprinted lies. We face the path of time, and yet I fight this battle all alone. No one to cry to, to go home.
I said to Anne, "Did you see that? How close do you think that was to us? Do you think that almost hit us? How lucky are we to have seen that?" Anne said, "It was really beautiful." Then I told her, "Do you have any idea how rare it is for a meteor that big and that bright to come that close to us? We are really, really lucky people, Anne. You and me."
My privacy is raped, and yet I find repeating in my head, if I can't be my own, I feel better dead.
We are like meteors or burning arrows arcing across the sky, shining for a moment yet destined to burn out. But the memory of us that lives on. Life and death are one. At least that's what the prophet says. But me personally, I do believe that there's a wonderful place we go to after this life. And I don't believe there's eternal damnation for anyone, even junkies. I'm not into religion, but I have a good grasp on my spirituality. I just believe that I'm not the greatest power on this earth. I didn't create myself, because I would have done a hell of a better job.
Rock and roll is here to stay. It's better to burn out than to fade away. Hey, hey. Out in the blue and into the black, they give you this, but you pay for that.